Welcome to Daily English Practice for You.
Have you ever had that feeling, you're reading English, maybe watching something, and you understand, well, pretty much everything, but then someone asks you a question, or you try to jump into a conversation, and suddenly, nothing. Your mind just goes blank. It's like this wall of confidence just isn't there. So the big question we're diving into today is, how do you get past that? How can you learn English fast? Sure, but really speak it more confidently.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling is incredibly common. It's almost a universal stage in language learning, I'd say. And that's exactly what we're going to explore in this deep dive. We're looking at some really powerful practical strategies to tackle that specific challenge. We've drawn some great insights from a recent conversation our sources had, focused specifically on, well, getting fluent in spoken English quickly.
Okay, good. So our mission here is pretty clear then. We want to pull out the best, most useful bits, the actionable stuff from that conversation, things you can start using like right away to help you move from feeling kind of stuck to actually speaking English more easily, more naturally. And yeah, with that confidence we all want, let's figure out how that works. And it seems like our sources really get that starting point, don't they? They talk about knowing a lot, understanding a lot, but then struggling when it's time to speak. That feeling awkward, worrying about mistakes, it's so relatable.
It really is, and it's important to understand why that happens. It's not, a personal failure. It's actually a
Well,
pretty natural cognitive thing. See, passive understanding, reading, listening, that mainly uses your declarative memory, knowing about things, like vocabulary rules,
yeah.
grammar,
Fast.
exactly,
Okay.
but speak. That needs procedural memory. That's the knowing how part, like riding a bike. It needs to become automatic. So freezing up, that's often just the difficulty of switching between those systems. It's a very, very common hurdle.
Okay, so recognizing that difference is kind of the first step.
Precisely.
Yeah. So if our brains need different things for speaking versus reading, how do we create an environment that pushes the speaking part? Especially if, moving abroad isn't an option right now. Our sources had some clever ideas for this, right?
Yeah, they did. And some are surprisingly simple but effective, like just changing your digital world. Switch your phone language to English, your social media, computer settings, everything.
It seems small.
It does. But think about it. It makes English ambient. It's just there.
Yeah.
Your brain starts processing it implicitly, not just when you sit down to study. English becomes the default background noise in a good way.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there was this other one, which I have to admit sounds a bit intense. The sources strongly suggest watching movies, TV shows without any subtitles. That feels like jumping in the deep end. Why is that supposedly so powerful, even if it feels, well, overwhelming at first?
It definitely can feel overwhelming, no doubt. But here's the core reason. Subtitles let your brain cheat, essentially. You end up reading English, not truly listening to it.
Ah, I see.
Right. Take away the subtitles, and you force your auditory processing to kick in. You have to focus on the sounds, the rhythm, the intonation, the speed, what linguists call prosody.
The music of the language.
Exactly. It trains your ear for spoken English in its natural flow.
Yeah.
It's a kind of deep implicit learning that bridges that gap between knowing words and understanding conversation. You're basically rewiring your brain to hear English properly.
Okay, rewiring the brain. I like that. So we're building this immersive space, training our ears, but then comes the actual speaking. And this is where I think the real fear can set in. Like, who do I practice with? What if I sound awful? What if I make mistakes? How do the sources suggest we tackle that anxiety?
Well, the first and maybe most crucial piece of advice from the sources is a mindset shift. Just don't worry so much about mistakes. Easier said than done, maybe, but mistakes aren't failures. They're data. They're how your brain learns and adjusts. Every fluent speaker you've ever met made tons of mistakes getting there.
So embrace the mistakes.
Embrace them. They're part of the process. Now, for practical ways to actually practice, one great suggestion is finding language exchange partners online. There are tons of apps for this. It's low pressure. Often you find people with similar interests. So the conversation feels more natural, less like a test.
Right, language exchange apps. That's a good one. Now, there was another idea from the sources that I thought was just brilliant and maybe a little funny, talking to yourself. I mean, it sounds kind of odd, but they explain it in a way that suddenly made perfect sense. How does just chatting away to yourself help?
It might sound quirky, yeah, but it's incredibly effective. Why? Because there's zero pressure. None.
Yeah.
You're activating the language parts to your brain. You're physically moving your mouth muscles to make the sounds, but without any fear of judgment.
So you can just experiment.
Exactly. Describe your day out loud. Narrate what you're doing as you cook or walk around. Okay, now I'm chopping the onions. They're making my eyes water a bit.
Haha.
The sources even suggested narrating what you see, or even your thoughts. I wonder what I should have for lunch.
Mm.
It builds that procedural memory, that muscle memory, and you'll genuinely be surprised how quickly you might start sort of thinking in English more automatically.
That's fascinating. Thinking in English without trying.
Okay.
And building on that idea of practice, but maybe with others, the sources also mention joining online English discussion groups. That sounds like a good middle ground, maybe.
Absolutely. It's a great step up. Engaging regularly with native or other advanced speakers in a group.
Mm.
It's dynamic. You hear different accents, different ways of phrasing things. You get exposed to real conversational flow.
Less intense than one-on-one sometimes?
Can be,
Maybe.
yeah. And often these groups are supportive. You can ask questions, share opinions, just get comfortable using the language actively with multiple people. It's closer to real-world interaction.
Okay, so if we pull all this together, the digital immersion, watching shows differently, finding partners, even talking to ourselves, joining groups, what's the big takeaway? The core principle that makes all this actually work and lead to real improvement.
It really boils down to one thing, and the sources were very clear on this. Consistency. Consistency matters more than anything else. It's not about finding, 3 hours straight to study intensely once a week.
Right.
It's about the small, regular actions. Even just 15 minutes a day, seriously.
Yeah.
Watch 15 minutes of a show without subtitles, narrate making your coffee, have a quick 15-minute chat online. The cumulative effect is massive. It's like compound interest for your language skills.
So the goal isn't perfection.
Not at all. The goal is communication, getting your message across.
Yeah.
And every little bit of consistent practice builds that ability, and crucially, the confidence that comes with it.
Exactly. And the more you actually do it, the more you speak, the easier the words will come, right? It becomes more natural. But just sticking with these strategies, even the small ones, consistently, you really should see a big difference pretty quickly. Okay, so let's just quickly recap those key takeaways we've pulled out today. First, create that digital immersion phone, social media, all in English. Then, bravely train your ears, watch shows and movies without subtitles to really tune into the sound of the language. Then actively speak. Find language partners online, try that surprisingly powerful technique of talking to yourself, or join online groups for regular interaction. And underpinning all of it, the golden rule from our sources, be consistent. Little and often beats big and rarely.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with, connecting this to the bigger picture. Think about those core ideas we discussed, that mistakes are actually essential for learning, and that small, consistent actions are more powerful than grand, infrequent gestures. How could applying that mindset, embracing the discomfort of trying something new, committing to small daily steps, how could that unlock confidence and skill, not just in English, but maybe other areas of your life you want to improve? Something to think about.